We are now at the point where we could start working with real data for our plugins. We have as our goal to get information about our treehouse profile stored in our options array in the database, and then eventually have portions of the profile information, like our badges, show up on the front end of the site. When we pass data between two sites, we often use what's called an API. API stands for Advanced Programming Interface. For web applications, we do not have interfaces like you would expect when using a single application. For example, the WordPress admin area serves as an interface for us to interact with all of the content stored in the WordPress database and files. In the case of interaction between two web applications, we'll often use an interface called JSON. Unlike other web interfaces we're used to, JSON is simply a text file with a specific structure and data that one site can provide to another. This is an example of a one-way interface. One site is passing JSON to another. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, so we could deduce that a JSON file is a special type of JavaScript file. However, technically speaking, it's a file that uses a subset of the JavaScript language. Here's an example of a simple JSON file. Notice the file is very human readable. We could easily determine that we have a list of first and last names of some treehouse teachers. It's also very customizable, so we could have each JSON object have different value pairs like this. One thing to note though is that JSON is very specific and it will fail if we do not format it correctly. This applies more to when we write our own JSON, but if we ever are in that situation, we should use a tool like JSLint to make sure we have valid JSON. So, once we get our JSON file from Treehouse, we could expect it to follow this format and look something like these examples, although we will receive a much longer file. We cannot assume, however, that all websites or applications have APIs that provide JSON files. So, before we proceed, let's pull in one of our Treehouse developers, Jim Hoskins, to make sure that we have something we could work with. Hey there, Jim.
Hey, Zach.
So we're working on this WordPress Badges plugin that pulls in our profile information from the Treehouse site and displays it on our WordPress site.
Cool.
So what I'm wondering is if we have some sort of profile API on the Treehouse site that we could use to pull in information to our WordPress site, preferably in the form of a JSON file.
Yeah, we actually have that. If you go to the Treehouse profile page and add .json to the end, it'll actually return a JSON document with all the info you need.
Really? That's it?
Yep.
Cool. Do we have to worry about any sort of performance issues from pulling in the JSON feed too many times or hitting the site too much?
Well, anytime you use an API, you want to make sure to keep the request to a minimum. It'll be better performance for your site and make sure that the site that's providing it isn't going under any undue stress. So I would save the feed locally and only update it when you need it.
Cool, that's exactly what we'll do. I'll let you get back to work now, Jim.
All right, thanks.